Back. I just want to tell you how I'm voting on a few different of local issues. In case you want a little advice, not that you necessarily want my advice, but if you do, yeah. First of all, I'm voting for Todd Gloria over Barbara Bree or Bry or whatever it is, because I heard her saying she doesn't support housing. She wants shelter. Well, how would she like it if she was homeless? When you're homeless, the problem. And it's just disgusting. It's a disgusting way to treat people, not to mention violative of, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says we have the right to procreate. How are you supposed to procreate if they make you live in a gym? What we really need to do is have a nationally supplied wealth tax on those with a net worth over 10 million, ideally, although if we have to lower it, we will, because we want to try to do away with all state and local taxes, including property taxes, and that way we can finance everything through wealth tax on the wealthiest people, or on even we could even make it on everyone, but just have it, a sliding scale where the richer you are, the more percentage of your you pay, wealthy, the higher percentage you pay, just because, most people are struggling to even afford to eat or have an apartment at this point. We have tens of millions out of work, mostly because of these lockdowns, just because they decided to take away our right to work. And that's disgusting, and that's horrible. All they had to do was, instead of, and there's always been two schools of thought, in America. All they had to do was tell people, look, all you have to do to survive COVID is eat right for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, eat what Dr. Robert Lustig calls real food. He says no sugar and no processed food. Now, Dr. Mark Hyman, and Dr. Andrew Weil, who I've been studying the last few years, and I've also recently learned about Dr. Asim Malhotra in London, who says up to 3 weeks to eating healthy, and then your immune system will be, good enough to handle this. What's happening is that if you don't understand it, to the degree that I understand it, I'll explain it. It's that because of eating all this sugar and processed food and other things. Dr. Mark Hyman says no sugar, no processed food, of course, no chemicals. That means, but no wheat, no dairy, no alcohol. I might throw in, for me, no eggs. And also, I do think that even eating liquids that have been up against plastics. Look for Nicholas Kristof's article on all the poisons we can accidentally ingest, even from touching receipts you get at a grocery store, sadly. It's really horrible. Really horrible. And not to mention all the pieces of plastic I pick up on the beach all the time. They're just poisoning us. Not to mention when they slice open the little fishies and look inside their bellies, they have these microscopic tiny pieces of plastic in them, and then we eat them, and then we wonder why we're dying of cancer. Well, honestly, if we quit sugar is the main thing. Dr. Lustig is right about that. He says if we just quit sugar and processed food, but sugar is in all these processed foods, that we will then, he says that's causing metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is when your immune system is on high alert, and it's actually attacking the body because it's on such high alert. And then when you add and sugar is, and inflammation is the main cause of the major, causes of death. Sugar causes 2/3 of all deaths. Those doctors who study this stuff, like Dr. Lustig, believe that sugar causes 2/3 of all deaths, meaning in the U.S., 2 out of 3 million people who die every year. Of course they would die someday, but like in 20 years instead of now. And in worldwide, that's 36 out of 54 million people we're talking who would live. Now, also, because of these lockdowns, we're causing hundreds of millions to starve to death. The UN alone says that we're currently starving 125 million people, mostly children, and that's going to be going up to 250 million people soon. So they're obviously definitely, they're killing way more people with these lockdowns than we could save, both by going off of sugar and by saving the COVID deaths from sugar. According to Dr. Lustig and Dr. Malhotra, we can stop all COVID deaths within 2 weeks if people just go off of sugar and processed food. Now, having studied this myself, I might add we should get off of wheat, dairy, alcohol. I think he said caffeine, but the problem with caffeine is it's also very healthy, especially it can protect you from Parkinson's. At least in the form of coffee it does. I don't know if it does in green tea. We'll have to discuss that one with Dr. Weil. Anyway, so, yes. Now, how I'm voting on these local issues. So besides Todd Gloria, as far as Uber, I'm voting to save Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and all that, just both so I can use them as, I might want to work on one of these places like in a few hours. Really. I mean, really, that would be cool. But what was I going to say? I probably will tonight. After midnight. We'll see. Anyway, probably. But what was I going to say? The other one is raising taxes. Yeah, for now we have to. I know that it's mostly on the wealthiest corporations, but besides that, until we have a federal wealth tax which handles these things, and we have to take care of it at the state level, just so we can have firemen and lifeguards and, yes, police, but we shouldn't be having the police, attacking us. That's disgusting and horrible, and murdering us in the streets. And as Trump is ordering them to, cops and federal troops to attack peaceful protesters, and he's threatening to try to steal our votes again and suppress the vote, and wants to try to not count it, votes that come in the mail. Well, screw that. It used to always be that it just had to be postmarked. Of course, I've always brought it in person, but it always just it's supposed to be postmarked. That's the general rule, not when it arrives, you idiot. It's not how these things work. It's postmarked, then you wait for them to roll in, asshole. It's called democracy. You don't like it? Fuck you. I know you don't. That's why you accepted the oath. I sued because you accepted the oath, you piece of shit. Now you're going to jail. That's right. For violating our human rights, for even being sworn in, you should go to jail. For even accepting that oath, you should be going to jail. You knew you lost by 3 million votes. You had no business accepting the oath. The 14th Amendment overrules the 12th Amendment. The 14th Amendment says we have equal protection of the laws. If there's one thing the equal protection of the laws means, it means we have equal vote. At least since the 1960s, the Supreme Court has agreed with that. Of course, they should have since the 1860s, but instead they decided to oppress black people for another 100 years. And we have to stop that because, yes, black lives matter. And yes, why is that? Because all lives matter, yes. But that means right now black people are being oppressed the most. However, let's not forget of the, I'm sorry, the USA arrests about 13 million people a year, and about probably 11 million of those are uncalled for an illegal arrest for unconstitutional, victimless, and consensual crimes. And I'm sure at least half of those people are, quote, white. So yes, black and brown people are disproportionately locked up, but we still have at least, 7 million white people being wrongfully arrested a year. Slaves in jail right now. And yes, of the 2.3 million people in jail wrongfully, about half of them are, quote, white. So yes, black lives matter, and yes, all lives matter, and it's both. And stop with this, it's either or, please. And yes, each means that the other is. Black Lives Matter means all lives matter means Black Lives Matter. It doesn't have to be either or. We can all hug it out on this one, for fuck's sake. As long as we believe that you shouldn't be, that you shouldn't be arresting or strangling to death people who aren't even breaking a law, or if it's alleged you don't hurt them. Oh, for allegedly hurting yourselves, usually. Fuck off. No right to arrest us for hurting ourselves. Thomas Jefferson said in his only book, "The legitimate powers of government extend to such acts as are injurious to others." Well, do you understand what that means? I mean, they didn't feel they had to fucking write those words into the Constitution because they all knew it. They didn't have anything on the books about going to jail for using drugs. The U.S. had legal drugs even when other countries didn't. For fuck's sake, the U.S. had legal opium and legal marijuana, and all our founding fathers had probably grew both. They were scientists too. Are you crazy? And they had legal sex work back then. I've read pieces of Ben Franklin's autobiography, and it looks like he was... Look... Our bodies, our rights, doesn't just mean women have the right to do with their vaginas as they wish. It means we all have the right to do with every orifice and with our brains, with our souls, with our bodies as we wish. And nobody has the right to arrest us if we're not hurting someone. And that does mean we also have to have the right to get it from them. All right, I have to get this phone call. No, I don't. I don't have to pick up this phone call. I am not going to pick it up. I'm sorry, but I hate it when they just keep harassing me but then of course I make these harassing phone calls to people in Florida, but I try to be really nice about it. I'm just saying please go to vote. I'm just very nice about it, not like I'm like I'm calling for people associated with Biden. I say who I'm calling for. It's called Florida for All. Anyway, and I believe they're financed by Lin-Manuel Miranda because his dad spoke along with Dolores Huerta. But I missed that day because I thought it started half an hour later because, excuse me, I didn't check. Sorry about that. It's because I just ate something off the diet, you see, but I'm allowed to because I just had some ice cream. You see, my mom, anyway, I ate some ice cream. Uh, I should not have. But the fact is, I already had COVID, so I don't give a crap. Well, I do. I've been taking very good care of myself, but I decided to break all the rules. I do care because I have to worry about inflammation. That's how I learned about all this stuff, was because I have an overactive immune system, and my skin kind of it hurts, and it gets inflamed when I don't eat perfect and when I don't exercise, when I don't go in the ocean every day. That's how I learned about all this stuff from Dr. Weil and Dr. Hyman and Dr. Lustig and now Dr. Malhotra. I mean, that's how and others, I can't remember their names, but that's how I learned about all this stuff. I mean, you can just pull up random studies on sugar and COVID. I mean, fuck, have fun. Fucking go nuts. You'll get it. Now, as far as these other issues, what other issue besides raising the taxes? Oh yeah, cash bail. I mean, we have to vote to end that. I mean, at least over 400,000 out of the 2.3 million people in jail are in just because they can't afford bail, and it's right in the Constitution that nobody should be put in jail because they can't afford to pay bail. Now, and 50% of the U.S. population has a negative net worth and cannot afford a $500 cash bail. And the wealthiest 1% of the population does own 50% of the nation's wealth, which the nation's wealth totals approximately 140 trillion. People are guessing could be 200 trillion, could be 300 trillion. Who knows? Could be 1,000 trillion, which is a quadrillion. But anyway, whatever that number is, you cut it in half, and then you say, okay, well, that's the amount that they have. And let's see if we can take a few percentage points off of that so we can have free college, free healthcare, free daycare, free diaper delivery, so we don't have to use disposables. I mean, this is, the kind of thing we have to be thinking about. I mean, I'd like to have solar vehicles, but I did see somebody today on Twitter recommending as a joke, or was it The Onion, horse and buggy, but it's not the worst idea, except for all the shit in the street, especially if you want to rollerblade. It's a nightmare. Makes you swerve into traffic. I laugh because I'm still alive. But anyway, hello, Central Park. Can't wait to visit you again soon, New York. I'll be driving there soon, I think. But for now, oh yeah, so as far as the campaign goes, yeah, for now we're going to regroup and try to remove every governor, starting with the governor of California. I mean, we got to reopen. And we might as well start to try to impeach Biden and remove him and all the judges too, because just so we can reopen immediately. But also the judges, the politicians, they all supported, locking us up for victimless crimes. Biden supported, locking up approximately 100 million people wrongfully. I'm not saying he should go to jail, but or Kamala Harris. I'm not saying. I mean, I want them in power right now versus Trump because they're not as much a threat to our lives right now. And I'm not talking COVID. They both intend to keep the lockdown on COVID. Trump says he wants to reopen. He's lying. If Trump wanted to reopen, he would have sued the governors. He doesn't want to reopen it, and therefore he's lying. Or he would have had Barr sue the governors. And both Barr and Amy Coney Barrett both said, quote, rough quote, well, of course we would not. Of course I would not. They said, quote, of course I would not have a dispute with governors' reasonable health measures. That's how they put it, meaning they would both support the lockdown. They both said that. So the fix is in, whether it's fear or whether it's because they want to pad the pockets of the banks. I think it's fear because they haven't learned about how to eat right. Or maybe they just want to pat. Could be they want to. I mean, it looks like they're in the pockets of the banks. They probably want to. This is the largest theft that we have seen in the history of our nation, in the history of our world, from the accumulated wealth of the hard work of the people over the last 100 years to go and steal from us like this. And make it so we can't work. So we have to starve in the streets and have to eat your packaged food in plastic and poison ourselves and starve sleep in our Toyota Corollas because of you freezing our asses off? Fuck you. Eat right. You want to make us poor because you refuse to learn about health? Because you refuse to eat right? And because the government refuses to make sure that people have healthy food? You'd rather make us poor than make sure that we can eat? How dare you? Yeah, we're taking you down, but first we gotta get Biden in so we all live. Okay, love you all. Talk to you soon. There's some other issues there. I don't know. I'll vote on them, whatever they are. Let me think if I missed any. Cash bail. Yeah, they're arresting 400,000 of the people in jail on any given day. And slaves in jail haven't even been convicted of anything. Yeah, we gotta free them. What was the other one? Uber. Yeah. Taxes for now until we have a wealth tax. Federal wealth tax. We could take this burden off of these state and local, and we can have equal education, equal spending per child. And should we hit the learning bee stand up and outside? Ideally, sure, fine. But masks and this social distancing, this imposed social distancing, it's really, all we have to do is have enough healthy food for people. If people are worried, fine, wear a mask, and the government should provide those for free. And certainly we need a healthcare system that could handle if people refuse to eat right. But the word of all the government should be eat right, eat right, eat right, eat right, eat right. Especially no sugar and no processed food, but also no dairy, no wheat, no refined carbs if you can help it. Although quinoa is probably fine and raw grains might be, but I know that quinoa is. I don't know about rice. Maybe whole grain. Still probably not as healthy as quinoa. I know this is difficult. You have to research anti-inflammation diet. I've been doing it my whole life and I still don't have it perfect. Well, and then sometimes I break it, but you can't break it if you want to survive COVID. Now, you could if you decide. First of all, as I said, sugar and processed food and eating all this shit and all this exposure to plastic and everything is responsible for 2/3 of all deaths. Yes. Meaning in the U.S., 2 out of 3 million people who die a year, and worldwide, 36 out of 54 million. Add to that the 1.2 million COVID deaths. It's probably 2 million. We don't even know it. In the U.S., add to that the 230,000 COVID deaths. Probably 300,000. We don't even know it. And they say that it was probably spreading for the last 18 months. So there was no way to stop it from China because there were 400,000 people going in and out of the Wuhan train station every day, not to mention the thousands of flights going in and out of China every day for the last 18 months. But that was the date, 18 months ago approximately, at which people started to research respiratory illness. They started to Google that phrase a lot in China, in Wuhan. So there you go. Bingo. Anyway, my point is, all you have to do to survive this disease is quit sugar. Now, if you don't give a shit about dying of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, blah, 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 hypertension, but you do care about COVID, then I guess you could just say you're going to quit sugar and processed food until you get COVID. And then survive it like me. By the way, I went to 2 open up protests before Trump then thought he had something on his hands, but he was supporting locking us down before opening us up, and not one person more would have died if he had not locked down after China, after whatever, not done a soft lockdown, still let in at least 40,000 people from China. But even if he had done that, he wouldn't have saved 2 million people. Hell no. They're already, all the scientists who are doing the email blogging in the Red Dawn group, they called it, were saying to each other that there are already people in the United States in every state transmitting it, so it was no use to shut down the borders. Yet the U.S. and every other stupid country shut down the borders. It didn't save one life. what would have saved every life would have been what I've been advocating the last 20 years, at least the last 10 years vociferously, which is to stop with the sugar and processed food and to go to a diet with certainly no dairy, no wheat, no processed food, no sugar, no alcohol. The main thing is no sugar, as I said, but also, ideally no, as I said, no wheat, no dairy, but even if it's just no sugar and no processed food, you will survive. So you do that for 2 weeks or until you get the disease, and then you'll survive. And then if you want, then you do it again. But as I said, I went to 2 protests after having gotten it and survived. And by the way, I only had like a light headache for a few hours. Well, moderate headache for about 24 hours, and it got to be scary, and I had the chills, and I had diarrhea, and I had burning in the lungs for 3 days, and then I had a fever for about 5 hours. Moderate fever, went up to like 102. But then, by the way, so then I went to these 2 protests, and I think that I had an attempted reinfection. And no, I don't think I was contagious during that time, but scientists will have to answer that question. But I certainly I believe I had attempted reinfection after each protest for 2 days. I had the sniffles, which according to, most scientists means I have a extreme strong I would have a good immune reaction, not this cytokine storm. Cytokine is just another word for saying inflammation storm, just like pneumonia just means inflammation. It's inflammation of the lungs, and they say, oh, now we think there's heart damage. No, they found that there's heart inflammation. They didn't find that that's permanent. Yes, it's all these. It attacks including the brain. I had a weird headache in the back of my head for a week. I mean, it attacks every organ to the degree to which you have poisons in your body. But to the degree to which you don't, it won't attack you overly and you'll live. The body's trying to heal itself, so it's accidentally attacking all the poisons in the body. And when you have too much poison in you, it goes nuts and accidentally kills you. That's all that's happening. And I very much mourn those who have died, and I wish that I wish people had listened to him, and I wish that to Dr. Hyman too before they got this disease. Like I've been trying to spread the disease, spread the knowledge for years, and nobody would listen. They threw me out of a synagogue twice. 2 different rabbis threw me out of a synagogue because I was angry that they were handing candy to children to try to get them to want to enjoy the religion. I told them, you're making them associate love with candy, and when they're depressed, they're going to turn to candy, and you're going to turn them into sugar addicts. And, as Dr. Hyman has been saying for years, sugar is the most addictive and deadly drug in the world. I forgot to tell you the statistics. All illegal drugs in the world every year kill 200,000 people a year worldwide, about maybe 70,000 in the U.S., I don't know. Maybe 100,000, make us having our policy, my policy of having not only legalizing drugs but having free drugs, would end most of those accidental overdoses and poisoning. Certainly. But if somebody wants to kill themselves, they have the right to do that. They should have the right to do that. You have the right to choose life and the right to choose death. Fuck it. I recommend choosing life, but I don't know what some people are going through. Some people are going through extreme pain, and we don't know what they're going through. And we don't have the right to judge sometimes. We never have the right to judge, but we're wrong a lot. Although my grandfather did used to say, suicide is just a a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that's usually true. So, don't do it. Teenage suicide, don't do it. That's from Heather's Kids. All right, anyway, corn nuts. Anyway, sorry, no, peaceful kids, peaceful. What else was I saying? All right, go out and vote, kids. I got to go and study the rest of these issues. Love you. Talk to you soon. 2 weeks, you quit sugar and processed food, you live. The rest of this is bullshit. We got to get our lives back. We want to have parties. We want to have joy. We want to have community. And no, we don't have to wait till we, quote, beat the disease, because I have a newsflash. We're never going to do that. It's impossible. This thing travels by air. They say 100,000 people are transmitting it a day. That's a lie. the first thing they said a few months ago was in June, something the CDC said to multiply all these numbers by 10, meaning if 9.2 million Americans have already been tested to have had the disease, that means over 92 million Americans have had the disease, likely. Florida serology tests, antibody tests are showing around 10%, but that doesn't mean that they're right. They could have a lot of false negatives, like mine was. My serology test said negative at the top, but then it showed positive and equivocal antibodies for short and long term. So they're definitely lying. Well, equivocal for long term and definite for short term. So they're lying. For some reason, they're issuing false negatives. Now, on one sense, I am happy if they ever try to steal our health care again based on pre-existing conditions. At least I don't have a pre-existing condition on my record. But they're lying. I'm immune, and we're immune forever. Likely. You've heard about some reinfections? That's true. Way under 1%, and likely an anomaly. A very, very rare, super rare anomaly. A lot of people think they have, but they've only proved a few, and most scientists believe it's a very rare anomaly. Anyway, okay, we got to get and as I said, if you eat healthy, you will not suffer much, and you will not die of this disease. You will suffer a lot less. Maybe you'll suffer a lot versus die, but you'll likely suffer a little versus a lot, and live versus die like I did. Even if you're still obese. Now, do I recommend that you end the obesity, the hypertension, the diabetes, the cancer? I mean, sugar is the main cause of most death. Do not forget that. Oh, and marijuana is a great way to heal the cancer, by the way. We'll get into that another time. But, oh yes, and with my whole condition, I've had this skin problem, like inflamed skin, and it happens because when I don't eat right, and when I don't exercise right, and when I don't get in the ocean enough. If I get in the ocean every day, I heal quick and eat right. But I learned this all from learning how to treat myself through diet instead of through and exercise instead of through, what do we call it? Medicine. I don't trust modern medicine, just like Dr. Lustig doesn't. Dr. Weil tries to avoid it at all costs. Oh, yes, well, as I was saying, Dr. Weil said, all along Dr. Weil, when he was asked about these, what they call biologics to treat these conditions like irritable bowel, quote, disease, or, quote, psoriasis, or psoriatic arthritis, or arthritis, all of these are conditions of inflammation, caused by metabolic syndrome, caused by eating too much sugar and processed food. And Dr. Hyman would say wheat, dairy, alcohol, and caffeine even. But what was I going to say? But I think coffee is important to protect you from Parkinson's. And maybe green tea accomplishes that. I don't know. You'd have to talk to Dr. Weil about that. And look into the studies, which so far only show coffee as far as I know. Anyway, we're backtracking. I'm not trying to get lost in the woods. These are very important things. God, especially, if you think that you're predisposed to Parkinson's, for God's sake. I helped to take care of a friend who was suffering through the last years of his life, greatly debilitated by it, a very genius-loving person named Norman Sondak, who I love very, very much, and his whole family, too. They're all dolls, angels. Lots of, doctors and lawyers and angels in the family. Every one of them. And, so brilliant. And a lot of fun. Anyway, but that's not the point. The point is, he was wonderful, he was loving, and I helped him now and then, when my mom wanted to spend time with her friend, Eileen, and who I love so much, too. She's amazing. And used to be the local reporter for, what was going on, who would, you'd call it society, but that's not it. It was she was the party reporter. But anyway, what was I going to say? I don't know. So Norman, yeah, you don't want to have to suffer like that, and it's very important. So that's why I bring up the coffee versus green tea dilemma. Yeah, these are important things. Anyway, okay, I better go because this is going to take a long time to upload even, and I still have to vote. Um, oh, and Norman was amazing, and he was one of the first computer scientists, if not, I think, the first person to teach computer science in college. I think that was his idea, and he was the first. And he said, "Oh, you want a website? Build it yourself." So now I have to redo my website so we can take down these governors and hopefully Biden and Harris soon too. I'm sorry, we have to. We're going to have to reopen. And they're not going to allow that till the disease wrecks the country. And I mean, they're slowing. They're slowing down. They're flattening the curve. Is stretching out the curve. We have to get this over with now. We can't do that till we make sure that the word is out about how to eat healthy, and until we make sure that the whole world has healthy food. I mean, we have to do that. You know, there are food deserts. There are people in the world who have no access to healthy food. Now, if we can only get them food versus fresh produce in a pinch, that's, you know, if that's how we have to do it, that's better than nothing. But there's no excuse to not get them fresh produce because it's so much healthier. There's no excuse. It's so much healthier. There's just no excuse. You know, like here, like I'm about to eat an organic olive. I mean, you know, it's in a glass jar from Trader Joe's. Now, granted, the top has plastic, and I'm very worried about that. See, these are the things I worry about. I'm serious. And these are the things we all have to worry about. Okay, I want to have this olive soon, but okay, I know. I'm very lucky to have this. As I said, there's about 1 billion people starving to death. We're also not only starving an extra billion people to death, but I mean, the UN estimated that at least 125 million people will starve to death. But also there's the deaths by disease, which starvation weakens their body, and that includes COVID. But also there's the deaths by other diseases, you know, because of weakened body, but also because people aren't getting treated in the clinics like they need to be. We're talking for like people throughout the world have stopped going to be treated for anything. And it's you can't imagine the suffering that you're imposing on people by making them put off surgeries like a new knee, like my mom needed. She said if she wasn't allowed to get her new knee, she was going to kill herself, and she meant it. All right, and speaking of which, this whole war on drugs, I forgot, just one more thing to mention. I mean, not only will having free drugs stop the whole most gun murders in our nation and south of the border, that's why we have all these people running for their lives here, is because we not only did the drug war, but we also did this like kind of right-wing attack on, quote, left-wing people. But what we were doing was really just paying for commandos to, you know, torture, rob, and rape innocent peasants. And they were all in on the drug dealing too. The head of Mexico's defense forces was just arrested in LA. He was El Jefe. You gotta watch the In-Laws, the original In-Laws, to see what's going on here. Okay, all I'm trying to say, good movie. Oh, he's a cutie, Honcho. All right, that's from the In-Laws. You know who you are who love that movie. Okay, is that the Mrs. General? No, that is a prostitute from the village. She was going to be on our nation's flag, but the Boers in the church blocked us. They blocked us at the UN. They blocked us, the Boers from the church. Okay, anyway, see the movie. Okay, so Serpentine Shell. You gotta see the movie. I don't want to spoil it for you. Anyway, so, all right, you get it. no more sugar, kids. But if we just feed about 1 billion people, now I've been saying this for years, we need to feed the world. And yes, with fresh produce. I mean, that the main way to eat healthy, I mean, yes, it's no this, no that, but if you just want a simple way, it's like mostly fresh vegetables, either steamed or raw, or cooked, I guess. It depends on the vegetable. So you have to research each vegetable, whether it's healthy or cooked or raw or steamed. I know, it's rough. And then, and Dr. Weil is great for all this too. And Dr. Hyman, but Dr. Weil makes it so easy. Oh my God. Oh yeah. Anyway. And we're going to have we're going to have this whole world. If we want all the 8 billion people in the world to be on an extremely anti-inflammatory diet, yes, the governments of the world are going to have to make this happen because under current, infrastructure, that's not happening. I mean, is testing important? Yeah, but I'd rather be focusing on feeding people and getting them fed right, because then everybody's immune. Even with all this lockdowns and shutdown, we've still lost over 1 million people worldwide and over 230,000 in the U.S. We wouldn't have lost one of these people if all we'd done is focus on diet. Not one, according to Doctors Lustig and Malhotra. And we want to get on with our lives. It's not right to steal the futures from our youth because some old people refuse to eat right. Now you can say they didn't know. Okay, now we're teaching them. Stop it. I've always been live and let live, but now when you want to say I can't work because you won't eat right, that's fucked up. All right, I love you all. Talk to you soon. I got to go and vote. Bye.